as you have seen, when a request comes to your application, it goes through a routing, and the routing component, if you remember what the routing does, it associates HTTP verb and the URI with a method, with a function call. So when somebody comes using that HTTP verb and comes to that particular URI, that method will be called. Now that function will be implemented in the controller, and the controller will call the repository or the model to do the work. And then if it is a web API, basically the controller will return JSON and that's it. If it is a web page, then the controller will return a view, and typically using a template. And we've seen all of this. Okay. Now, here you have been doing this. I just want to highlight it one more time. So to build a web application in an express way, in a very easy and fast way, you download and use Express. You import it into your application. You create an instance of Express. And then if you are doing a simple application, you can define your routes in the same file by going to the app object and say, if somebody comes using HTTP GET to this URL, this is what I want you to do. In our case, simple, just send this string using the response object. And then once here you are configuring your app. Once your app is configured and knows what to do, you start listening to requests. You give it a port number and you start listening to requests. So once the users go to this URL, basically they are using a get verb, and they are coming to the root, which is /. Then they will end up in this route, and this route will execute this function and return this string. So I hope it's very clear. You have seen this, you have practiced it. I'm just emphasizing it one more time. Now, as your application grows and becomes more complex, so we don't want to make this app.js too long. So what you do, you take these routes and you put them in a separate file. And this is what the routing module allows you to do. So routing, it's not the routing in networking. It's kind of different here. So what we do in the routing, we associating, as I explained, a verb and a URI with a function call. When the user comes using this verb and to this URI, this function will be called. Now, in the URI, I can also pass parameters. You have seen this. So here I am indicating that this last part of the URI is really a parameter. So when the user comes to it/API/student/ let's say 1234, 1234 will be assigned to this last parameter. And Express makes it accessible, makes this parameter accessible through request.params. And then you go and grab your parameter as an attribute of params collection or params object. Okay. So this is what I just explained. You can pass parameters as in the URL. And here I can even pass multiple parameters. So I go in here and say, maybe this is not very good. These are not users. This is authors. This could be a better name. So I have, let's say, many authors, and each author has many books. So I can go and say, give me, again, this is not good. All right. So here, not user, I will call it author ID. See, much better name, yes? Author ID. So I can say, go to this author 123 and give me, if I stop here, I'll get all the books of this particular author. Yes. If I want one particular book, I can go and I put another parameter. So you see in this URL, I have defined two parameters. One is the author, and another one is the book. And this is a nice design of the URI. The URI, you really need to design it very nicely in the way that you go from the whole to the parts. Or you go, let's say authors have books. So you can kind of navigate from the whole and navigate down to the parts. So if let's say if I remove this and remove this, and I just put the URI like this, author/books. So I get all the books for all the authors. If I just stop here, I will get the books for this particular author. But if I add one more parameter, I get particular book of a particular author. So this is basically how I define parameters. In the URI, I put the parameters with colon in front of them. Now the user, how the end user will call this URI, it will be something like /author/123/books/234. And then when the request comes, 123 will be assigned to author ID, and 234, which is the book ID, will be assigned to book ID. You get the idea? Yes? Okay. So this is how I define routes with parameters. Okay. Now, one more thing I want to show you, like when I have something like this, have a look at this form. Here I have a little form that looks like a kind of a login form, or not really. Is it a login form? Let's make it a login form. Username here, and the name here is password. Yep, and I'll make this one password. Instead of text, I don't want people to see my password, so I make the type as password. So here is my little, very small login form. How many inputs it asks the user to enter? 2. This one is the button. So here it asks for the username and password, and I can submit the form. So when the form is submitted, what does the browser do? What will the browser do in this scenario? Here's the form. Okay, we'll take the username and password, and then? No. The browser. Browser will not compare on anything. Very good. Send it to the server side. Which method it will use to send it? Have a look there. Post. How does the browser know that it should send the data using post? How did it know? Have a look. It's all there. No, not the client. No. You, as developer, you tell the browser what to do. Yes. How do we tell the browser which method to use to send the data to the server side? When we create a form element, we put here one of the properties of one of the attributes of form element is method. And here, what the verb could be here? What other verbs could we put here? Get, post. Delete. Yeah, not here. Delete and put, usually we do it programmatically. Don't worry about it. But for forms, usually 2 major verbs. In 95% of cases, the form will have the method equal post. I can also put method equal get. What does this mean? If I'm putting here post, what does it mean? No, tell me what will happen when the browser sees this. Let's act as the browser. Let's act today as the browser and tell me this is my HTML page. Let's say login page. So I get this form. Sorry, let me just make it a bit more realistic. Just a second. We will act today as the Chrome. We are Chrome, okay? And basically we got this HTML page called login.html. So what the browser will do when it gets this page? When the user enters data. No. First, what the browser will do when this page arrives to the page, to the browser? It will create a UI like this. It will create something like this: user name, Yes?
Yes.
Password. And it will have a button here called Submit. This is the UI that the user will see, yes?
Yeah.
Is clear?
Yes.
Of course, this is a form. This is internally, the browser knows that this one is a form. Yes? So, now it asks me, enter your username, let's say, enter your password, easy password, and then submit. Okay, what the browser will do now when I submit?
Will receive this.
Sorry? No, one of you, just one of you, please. One. Yes, please. We'll take these values that I've entered. Very good. And then? Sorry? Put it in the URI, in the URL, and send it to the server. Is that what you want to say? It would have done that if the method was get. If the method, some of you asked me some exam questions. This is an exam question. So, if the method is get, how the server will send this data to the server? Through the URI. Through the URI. Let's say, remember this form, maybe I got this form using localhost 88, for example, /login.html. Suppose I went to this form, I went to this address and I got this page. I displayed it to the user entered the details and then hit submit. Now, when I say submit means get the information that I have entered, put them in a string. How the browser will put them in a string? Can somebody tell me the string the browser will construct based on what I have entered here? What the string will look like?
Like objects?
No, by the way, browsers were created, and HTML and all this HTTP was created even before JavaScript was there. So there was no JSON or objects or anything. So the browser will construct a string based on what I entered. What this string will look like? Remember, we have discussed this.
Question mark?
No, before that, that is sending the string. So now constructing the string. When I submit, the browser will do what? Construct a string. What this string will look like?
Do you have the values entered?
Yes, how it will send them.
Because it uses body parsers, so it will...
No. You are confusing. This is the problem. You see, you really need to have very deep understanding of what's going on. Body parser is something on the server, has nothing to do with the client. I am now on the client. There is no JavaScript, there is no body parser, there is no JS, there is nothing. There is the browser and there is HTTP protocol. Okay? Based on...
What if we like the name or the username and then the...
Yes, very good. So how it will construct this? So basically the information that I have entered, it will concatenate them in one string and send them to the server. That's what submit means. I want to know how this string looks like. Is it just Iradi and password? Because if I just send this, the server will say, what is this you are sending me?
Yeah.
Two values, what they mean? I can't do anything with them. They could be anything. What are you telling me? It's too confusing. So what the browser is supposed to do?
The parameter in the value?
So it will concatenate the name of the input with the value. So how it will know the name of the input? From here. Here is the name. Here is the name. So when I hit submit, this is what the browser will do. User name equals what? Yeah. Okay. And then ampersand password equals password. Is clear? Yes, you're right. Some of you might say, okay, why did not use JSON? Oh, by the way, when people invented this, there was no such thing as JSON. There was no JavaScript at that time. It's just simple string. Name equal value, ampersand name equal value.
It's easier.
Well, not really easier, because this one is not easily, you cannot easily convert it to an object. With JSON in one line, you can convert to an object. This one, you need more programming to convert it to an object. Yes, please.
I have a question related to security.
Yeah.
When it send a password, will it send it encrypted or just
Depends. If you are using HTTP, it's plain text. If you are using HTTP. If you are using HTTPS, then the browser will establish first a secure communication channel between the client and the server, and then everything going through the channel is encrypted.
So because most of the websites are HTTP, so
No, most of the websites when it comes to login, it's HTTPS.
Yeah.
Have a look now when you go to, even when you want to log into your Gmail or log into QNB or Qatar Airways. Yes, when you are browsing, maybe HTTP, but once you start going into secure sections, it's HTTPS. Okay? Very important, because anybody can tap in here and see all what you do. Yes? Is clear so far?
Yes.
So this is what the browser does. Before it submits, it collects this input and puts it as one string. Name equal value, ampersand, separated by ampersand. Yes? This is called basically URL encoded value. It's an encoded value. So the server, when it receives it, it knows what, it basically makes a lot of sense. Not just sending the values. You need to send the names equal values. Now, how the browser will send this string to the server side? First of all, when it will send it, which address it will send it to?
It depends on the address.
Which address?
We have here.
Which attribute of the form tells us the address, the destination address?
The action.
The action. Are you following? So a form has two very, very important attributes. One is called action. What the action is used for?
The URL address.
Specify the destination URL where the lucky function will be receiving this string. Yes? And also the other attribute, which is also very important, is the method. How the server will send it. Is it using a get verb or is it using a post verb? You decide as a developer. Okay? If you are sending, let's say, one parameter, I showed you this last time in Google when you are searching. When you search, and the search button, let me show it to you one more time. I'm sure I've shown you this, but let me just show it one more time. Here is the Google, okay? Okay, so, interesting. No internet. Anyway, well, let's not try it. So in here, this is a form. This is a real form. So I fill up the form and submit. When I do submit, Google, they do a get request to send the information. Have a look. So in a get request, or if I put the method equal get, what will happen to this string?
This won't be sent, it will be changed in the URL.
It will be added to the URL as I specified here. So here is the URL. It will be, if I make this one get, okay? If I make this one get, what the server will do, it will do something like this. It will do a get request slash, which is the action, slash, which is the action, and then it will add this string here, question mark, and it will add this string here. Yeah? Now, if I put, of course you will say to me, where is the host? The host is where the form came from. So like basically, this will be sent to localhost 88/ question mark, and this string. Now if I put a post instead of get I make it post. Yes? So how the browser will send this information to the server? Which verb it will use? Post. And will it add it to the URL? No. So it will put one empty line and it will put here this string, will put it in the body of the request, in the request body. So it will not be as part of the URL. So it's basically, I'll write it. So this is how, if this is the form, this is how the HTTP request will look like. It will look like something like this. Post. How did I know I will use post? Not get. Because as developer, I specified the method of transmitting this data is post. So the browser here's an obeys. It's not okay. It will do what I told it to do. So it will say post it to where?
To the body of the request.
No, post it to where? Where do I post this information? Where I will send this information? Which server? Which part? The action. I look at the action. The browser will look at the action of the form and decide where to send it to. So slash. And then there is another header called host. And the host in this case is basically localhost 88. It will leave one empty line as per the protocol. HTTP protocol says when you finish with the header, leave one empty line and then put the body. What will be the body? Username equal, okay, ampersand and password equal password. Is clear? Is the idea clear? So depending on the verb that I use, the data will be transmitted in a different way. If it is post, the data will be placed in the body of the request. Yes? If it is a get request do not have a body. So where do we place the data we send in? In the get, in the URL. Sorry, in the URL of the request. Is this clear? Okay. And you can try this. You can use for example, I showed you this through Firefox, for example, or through Chrome. You can see what's going on. You take a form and see this yourself. Okay, so when the request comes to the server side, are you following? When the request comes to the server side, this request is the information is placed in where? In which part of the request? In the body of the request. Now, of course, I can go myself and read this information and then break it down based on using the ampersand to find out the parts of the message, and break it down using equal to find out the property and the value. Of course, I can do that. It will take me a couple of lines to do it, but I don't really need to do it myself. I can just use a middleware. A middleware is some function that is, before the request comes to my function, it goes through a series of functions. And these functions can do some work along the way. So one of the middlewares you can use is the body parser. So what the body parser does?
It breaks down the...
So it will take this body and convert this string to JSON object. It will convert it to a JSON object and place it where? Where it will place it. And basically it will place it in a request.body. Yes? So when I come here / you see how do I make use of a middleware? How do I add a middleware to my app? I go to my app and I say use this middleware. Middleware is something that is intermediate, something in the middle that comes between between receiving the request and handling the request. You can add as many middlewares as you wish. One of the middlewares here I'm using is the body parser. What this body parser middleware does, it goes to the request, it reads the body. That could be, this body could be in URL encoded format, in an old traditional format. I don't want to deal with this format. It's too hard to read the information straight away from it. Instead, I get this body parser, it goes through, reads this string, and converts it to JSON object, and then what it does with that JSON object? Assigns it to a request property called body. And then, all I need to do here, I go to my request with body dot the property name that I want to read. And I don't need to go through and parse this myself. The body parser already did it for me. And this is the concept of a middleware. It is clear, concept of a middleware? So there are many middlewares that you can just download and use, or you can create yourself. So middleware is nothing but a function through which the request will go through, and that function might do some transformation to the request, might do some work on the request. An example is this body parser. Okay. Now, all right. I'm not sure why this guy is coming here. Anyway, it's kind of a bit strange. This should go here. Anyway, all right. So now let me go back to the routes. Remember the routes? When I have a simple app, I can define my routes in the app.js. No problem. As my app grows, it's time to kick out those routes to a separate file. So to be able to take them out to a separate file, I can make use of something called a router. So I go to Express and say to him, oh, please give me a router object. I want to define some routes in this router object. So I define the routes. So in here I go router.get, and if somebody comes to /API/students, this is the function I want to call. So this is in a separate file. And by the way, in here I will go and say module.exports equal router. You get the idea. So in this file, I define my routes and then export them so they will be accessible from another file. It's just a way of making things modular. And then on the app.js, I import my route file. You see here I require it. This is I import my route file, and then I tell the app to use this router. So it's just a way of making my implementation more modular, putting the routes in a separate file. Is clear? So how do I put the routes in a separate file? I get an instance of the router, define all my routes in the router rather than the app.js. Export the router from the routes file, and then in the app.js, I import the routes and use them with the app. Is clear? What's the purpose of all this exercise? Why I'm doing all of this? Modularity. Yes. Keep things organized and modular. That's it. Okay. All right, what this guy is trying to do. Interaction between the app modules. Okay, I already explained this. Khalas. All right, so now I want to really like a bit more details on the middleware, on this concept of a middleware. A middleware, again, it's all about modularity. So the Express engine, you could have all the functionality built in, but they made it very, very modular. And between the time you receive the request and the time your function, your route handler gets executed, you can put as many functions in the way as you wish. Those functions that you put on the way, what do we call them? Middleware. Okay. So here is the request coming, and here is your function that generates the response. So in between, you can put as many middlewares as you wish. One of the middlewares that we have seen, body parts. Another one could be logging. Logging means log. Any request that comes, you make a record of it. What time the request came, what the request asked for. Because you might want to do some analysis. My users, which popular page they come to. What my users are doing. Are they coming midnight or Fajr time or midday? What are the busy periods? I can log that information, when they came, what they are doing. And by the way, all applications do this, by the way. So it's not like open. People do some analysis, like even Banner or Blackboard, maybe they are doing some analysis, like when students are active. It's because all these requests are logged. You can do analysis if you wish. Okay? You can do authentication. When a request comes, I say who you are. Do I know you? You are allowed to use what you are trying to use? Yes, I allow you to go ahead. Otherwise, I say sorry, access denied.
Yes.
You get the idea? So this is what the middleware you can do. A router itself, you can think of it as a middleware. Because remember here, have a look. When I use the router, it's a really, I'm using use. It's a middleware. When the request comes, it will go through the router to do what? It will go through the router to do what? To decide which function will handle the request. Yes? You get the idea? Yeah. So that is the idea of a middleware. So there is another example of a middleware. I'm sure you have seen this one. If you have some static files, some HTML file, some image, whatever you have, you just want users to come in, ask for that file, and you just return it to them. It's static. There is no programming involved. So you can use static middleware that comes with Express to allow users to come to a particular folder and ask for certain file. Yeah. If you don't add this middleware, if users come and request for a static file, the server will not give it to them.
What is a static file like? The layouts?
Static file could have an image. I could have a page, like let's say about page, like some page that tells about some information about the organization. We were created on this date. Our boss is this. Our location is here. This is static information. So I can put it in one HTML page, and then instead of writing the code myself to say if somebody comes to /about, read the file and then send the file to the requester, I can just simply add this middleware, and it will handle if somebody asks for any file in this __ directory name, which refers to the current folder, the root folder of the application. If anyone asks for a file there, I return it to them. Okay, seems you ask for a specific one. So let me show it to you. So here is the app.js. Here's my app.js. I have here static express. I'm using the static middleware, which means if somebody asks for a particular file, I will return it to them. Okay? So let me just go to my root application. Here's my root. And let me create a simple file here. New HTML about. Okay? And here I'll put about. And here I'll put a paragraph saying these are MVC examples. Okay? So this is a static page. It doesn't, or if somebody wants it, all they need to do, let me make sure the app is running. So let me run the app. And then how do I request this file? I'll go to localhost and I will go to about.html and I will get this. Okay? So how do I get my server to respond to such requests for static pages or static resources? By adding a middleware called express.static. And I will tell it which folder to look for, to get the static resources. So in here, which folder we look for to get the static resources? The current folder. How do we refer to the current folder? Underscore underscore div name. This is how Express people name the current folder. Not the best name, but this is how they have it. They have done a good job with this one. I don't know. Strangely, they name it this way. It could be current path or whatever. Yes, is clear? Okay, so here is an example. For example, here a request comes in. There is a login middleware. Login means I put the request in a file, so I know some information when the request came, by whom, and which time, for example. Then I go through and see if the user is authorized to access what they are trying to do. If they are, I let them do it, and I send them the response. Otherwise, I tell the user not authorized, and they will not even reach my route handler. The code that I wrote, they will not even come to it, because some middleware caught them in the middle and throw them to give them an error message, and they will not even get to my code. So that's the idea of a middleware. Now, how do I create a middleware? Very, very simple. A middleware is nothing but a function. And this function has 3 parameters. Request, response, and next. Request, response, and next. So in here, this is a simple logger middleware. What this logger middleware does, it basically goes to the request and add an attribute called request time, which is the exact time when the request came. Yes? And then basically in here, what I'm doing here, I'm just putting a log. This could be in a file. In real life, you will put this in a file or a database to say a request came at this time. And then you ask the middleware, you ask the Express to do the next step. So the middleware has finished, it's time to do the next step. You know, middleware is like factory workers. Each worker does some part of the job and hand over to the next worker to do the next part of the job. And so here is the logger. All I do, I go to my app.use and put the logger function. This is a middleware, that's it. So any request coming in, it will go first through this middleware. Now, if somebody comes to /app.get/, they're coming to the root. So all I'm doing, I'm creating a string, hello world, requested at, and the request time. From where this request time came from? From the middleware. The middleware added this property to the request. And so which one will run first? Is it the logger or my route handler? The logger first. Even there sequentially, we will go through the logger and then come here. And then basically I'm sending the response. This is my app, I go and start it, and it will start here. So let me show it to you as an example middleware. So here's an app with a middleware. I will run it. Okay, it is running now. I'll go there. So once I go there, it will show me some greeting, requested at, and the time of the request. Who added this request, the request time, is basically this logger that I have added. So I hope the concept of a middleware is clear. Now in here, let's say this is an authorization middleware. If it is an authorization middleware, I could, and you don't have access to what you are asking for, I can send you an error message and not allow you to go next. I can just say here response. Let's kind of try it. I can say here response dot send. Not allowed. In here I can do if you are administrator you can, otherwise you can't. So, but in here let me just not authorize anyone, okay? And basically let me run this. So if I go here, I will get not allowed. So the middleware intercepted my request, applied some authorization logic. It decided that I'm not allowed to see what I requested, and it tells me, no way you can get what you want. Go somewhere else. Halas, that's it. My route handler did not even run, because the middleware I put in the middle between the request and the response have intercepted the request and basically rejected it. And you can see here, it's all about modularity. It's really, you can think, if you've seen modularity in software engineering as a concept, here is a real implementation of it. Everything is modular. You can plug in whatever you wish, whatever you want. You can plug in what other people have created, like body parser or a logger. You can create your own and plug them in. And it's up to you what you want to plug in, what you don't want to plug in. That's the idea of a middleware. So I hope things are clear. These slides are basically the core of the whole course. So please, we spent so much time on them, kind of back and forth. So I hope they are very clear now. You have the associated examples with them. So please make sure you really master those slides.